My Windows computer just doesn't feel like mine anymore. An operating system is the most personal part of a personal computer, and it used to be that as a Windows user I didn't feel like I was renting my computer from Microsoft, but in recent years that feeling has all but evaporated. To me, Windows feels cheaper and more commercial than ever, and that's not a recipe for a good user experience. The offline glory days of Windows. The first version of Windows I ever used, coming from MS-DOS, was Windows 3.1. While Windows 3.1 might look incredibly primitive today, it's hard to explain just how big of a leap this was for a kid who had to memorize the command line instructions just to play some games. Things didn't really quick off for me until Windows 95 and our first taste of the internet. But even then, 99% of my Windows time up until Windows 7 was spent disconnected from the net. In retrospect, this was actually a good thing in some ways because it meant that Microsoft could remotely mess with my Windows installation. Patches and updates came in the form of Windows Service Packs, and those were on actual physical floppy disks or CD-ROMs. If my computer worked yesterday, I didn't change anything myself, it would almost certainly keep working until I inadvertently broke it myself. Now that Windows is almost always online, my personal computer experience is feeling quite a bit less personal. Advertising sneaking in. If you bought a laptop or a pre-built computer, you probably didn't think much about the price of Windows. But the fact is that Windows has never been an inexpensive operating system. As someone who has almost always built their own computer, I'm keenly aware that the software costs a significant amount of money, which is why I and o- many other people were a little irked when Windows started introducing advertising and writing guides on how to turn off advertising in Windows became a popular new pastime for use tech bloggers. Basically, it now feels like Windows is partly subsidized by advertising, and regular user can't just have the operating system they paid for without being sold more software and services. It's not yet the most egregious way to go about it, but for someone who prefers absolute minimalism in their computer interfaces, it's not working for my feng shui. Updates breaking my PC. At this point, I have lost count of the number of times that I've left my perfectly working Windows computer at the end of my workday, only to return to a completely broken computer that won't boot the next morning. First, automatic Windows updates seem inevitable now, and with every workaround people come out with, the loopholes are closed. Updates can be delayed, but not deferred. Resistance is futile, which is why I find it hard to even trust Windows to run a Plex server or an NAS, because inevitably it will reboot the computer without asking me first. Leave my settings alone, Microsoft. When I have my computer set up a certain way, I'd like it to stay that way permanently. Just search the forums on sites like Reddit or Microsoft's own community forums, and you'll find numerous complaints about settings changing after updates. It can be innocuous stuff or more serious or impactful things, such as privacy settings. If anyone is going to flip the switches or my computer to control how it behaves and what's allowed, it should be me. Linux respects its users. The other major player here is, of course, Linux in all its varied distributions. Here you are literally getting the operating system for free. The closest that a distro of Linux has come on planting ads was when Plus for Software showed up in the Ubuntu message of day, and more recently a sort of ad for Ubuntu Pro in the terminal. If anyone knows of other examples of native ads in a Linux distro, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I've had on and on again off again relationship with Linux over the years, and daily drove it during 7 years of university, and never did I feel that I was being exploited or not in control. In fact, I was probably into much control, which is why you can break Linux in so many creative ways just by being a dummy. Can Windows make a comeback? More and more. I feel like Windows is just becoming a loss leading front end for Microsoft to sell its many software as a service products. They don't even do anything if you don't activate Windows other than block wallpaper changes and put a tiny watermark in the corner. You can be sure you can still subscribe under services even if you didn't pay for Windows. I really hope there will be some way in the future to get a version of Windows that's not for enterprise users, which gives you the choice to have Microsoft but out of the daily running, appearance, and setting of your computer. I hate to even suggest it, but I might even be willing to pay for an ad free or hands off version of the OS. Will it happen, or will Windows continue to slowly turn into a twisted Black Mirror version of itself? As someone who actually likes Windows, I sure hope it can turn that corner.